Good evening, and thank you for coming to the 10th Lake County Film Festival. This is the Q&A session for Where She Lies, and I am very excited to have with us director Zach Marion. Hey, Zach, how's it going?
Hey, Nat, I'm doing really well. I'm so happy to be here. Happy to talk about the film.
I'm excited. We talked about this a little while ago, but your movie just came out nationwide on Tuesday, and so we're the first. Did you do much of a Q&A? You had a watch party yesterday, 2 days ago? Was it
Yeah,
Tuesday?
we had a watch party on Friday, last Friday. I feel like I'm so messed up with my time.
It was Tuesday, wasn't it?
No, it was on Wednesday. It was on Wednesday. Oh, yes. We had a Q&A on Wednesday. I don't know why I said Friday.
Did you do a lot of question and answer, audience participation, anything like that?
No, there wasn't a lot of participation. It ended up being a lot of like good friends and family and stuff, which is great. And as you know, especially with live events, film festivals and things like that, with all that's going on with COVID, it's always like a challenge to figure out how to celebrate something, especially a film release, which is, I'd love to someday see the film in a theater. I even dabbled with the idea of doing drive-ins, because there's some drive-in theaters in and around LA where I live that you can rent out theaters and have screenings and such. So, but no, it was great. We had a little pre-launch event to celebrate the release. It came out Wednesday, not Friday, in some other universe.
Today is Friday.
Today is Friday. Wow.
We were talking about how tired I am, but apparently you are too. So that helps me feel good.
Yeah.
I could say if we're all good next year, and you want to come out, we could run it again. I usually have, if this is all over, in a physical location, my festival is usually at a community college, and I really have a lot of screens available. And normally, several years, I actually took one room through the weekend and made it free, and only showed stuff that I normally wouldn't show, which is mostly because it was already available. So I would show award winners from the previous year.
That's cool.
Random things I might have missed. I showed a short program that someone else curated. I've shown work in progress screenings in there. So yeah, next year, if we're over this nightmare, come by and watch it with with an audience for the first time.
Well, you heard it here, folks. Promised it.
Provided the college is open.
Then next year I'm going to say, can I come back next year too? And every year we'll just, we'll just watch the movie.
You'll have to make something next time.
Oh, I like that. Give me 4 or 5 more years and maybe I can cook some real good independent cinema up for you.
I had that on there, and actually, I almost asked it just before when we were talking. Is how long? I did not remember how long it took you from when you first met Peggy until this, until this year.
It took me 37 years. I've been working on this. No, in earnest, it took me 4 years. 4 years. So but I found the story in 2009, maybe 2009. I found the story, and I didn't do anything with it until 2016, and so it was 4 years, and it was a good amount of time in post because it was kind of a complicated movie to put together in post, figure out the story. Real quick, I want to deviate though. I want to tell a quick story about you and me. So when you're making a movie, right, you are like basically underground for 4 years, and you're just like showing it to people. And, some of those people are like, are friends of yours, and and maybe they're not always like film people, and they just have like all their own opinions, and some of them you listen to, and some of them you're just like, I can't take that out. But you were like the first person that I spoke to that was outside of all the process of making the movie. Kind of like, the groundhog comes out of the ground and and like looks around and is like, is it safe out here? I just like got a phone call from you out of the blue because I had submitted to the Nashville Film Festival, and you were so excited. You were like, dude, I just finished your movie. Like, it's so good. Like, we want to like offer you this spot in the Nashville Film Festival. And it was the first validation of like, oh my gosh, like I made a movie and like a real festival wants to like include it. So my connection with you was special because it was really the first person who saw the film, liked the film, saw the potential in it, and gave me a shot in the Nashville Film Festival.
Yeah, and it was so exciting. I think I called you maybe the next day or something like that. You submitted late, fairly late to the festival.
Yeah.
So I knew I was like, this, I've got room. It's not, if it comes in early, you're like, as great as you think it is, what if there's 6 more that come that are even better, So I try not to, do too much with the early acceptance, but you were late. And, Lauren, the I don't know what her programming I'm not sure what her title is, but to me, she's the artistic director. Don't let anyone else hear you say I said that, because that's. She was like, hey, well, they were very big on getting everything done early this year because they were online. She's like, well, do you have some that we can definitely do? And I was like, I saw this movie last night, and I want to talk to him right away. I want to know more. That's like, I want to find a couple things out.
Yeah.
Well, the big one, as we'll get into, is what I mentioned. What I mentioned in that email, which is a big, I think a big key, to unlock a couple things. But
we can preface this too by saying most of the interviews I've done for the film so far have been for previewing audiences, which is really hard to talk about this movie when you haven't seen it. So yes. We're gonna. This is like a spoiler alert. Let's talk about the movie as if the person has seen it.
This definitely, I wish I had like a little icon, I could put up spoiler time. But I will, like I said, I'm going to go after the festival. I'm going to go through and edit the descriptions of all of these on YouTube, so they're more easily searchable, and they'll be up, and then they'll be up there forever. So as people see all these movies, hopefully they will find them later. It's been interesting. Yeah. Trying to do a little homework and looking for Q&As, how few of them are online. Everyone, with COVID, everyone's doing the virtual thing. And I know everyone's doing a ton of Q&As, but they're not getting archived. And, for me, this festival, people have said, oh, I like the way you do this. I like the way you do that. And for me, it's like, this is the way it should be. And that's the way it's going to happen. You should have these where people can see them, not locked behind somewhere, not gone.
I think that's great, especially for YouTube. Where you can search YouTube 10 years later and go, oh, hey, that person's talking about the movie they made.
I think there's been more Facebook interaction in the immediate because people get like a notification, and because I have no YouTube followers. I have like 8 YouTube followers, so
sure.
Those people aren't getting notifications, but I think when it comes to history, I think it's all just going to move over. I'll archive it on the site. Each page will, probably have the Q&A embedded in there eventually. It's just been too much to try and do this week. It's been a little crazy. But, boy, I don't know where we went with this. But spoiler, I should probably add a spoiler tag to every video for the week. But anyway, so where are we?
It's Friday.
Yeah, I feel like I should be drinking something other than Diet Sunkist, but So tell me, you read about Peggy's story. Where did you read about Peggy's story?
Okay, so I've told this story a couple times, so I'm gonna. It's interesting if I tell it quickly. I think, which is, I worked in television development. I wanted to do a show about deathbed confessions. I thought that was like a really cool concept. And I specifically was developing it for Investigation Discovery. They really liked the concept. They asked me to put together a 6-season episode guide, which is 60 episodes. So I spent like a couple months finding 60 deathbed confession stories. found this one that was like fascinating to me. And for those who are assuming have seen the movie, it is about this woman, Peggy Phillips. And basically the premise in the article, which existed in the following form: 1-page Associated Press article, like maybe like 5 paragraphs, and every paragraph was like 2 sentences long. And it had very, excuse me, the article had very sparse details. Peggy Phillips gave birth out of wedlock 1962, told her baby had died, and then 33 years later, her mother confesses on her deathbed, your baby never died. So I was like, how did this happen? Like, this article just existed from 1998. I started doing other keyword searches. There's nothing about Peggy Phillips, nothing about the resolution of the story, like nothing. And I was just fascinating. I was like, how could this have happened and it never got resolved? And this resolution, if it did get resolved, is not on the internet. So that was back in 2009. The show ended up not getting made. It went all the way to a green light meeting at ID, got passed on. And I moved on with other work. I moved out to Los Angeles, got my degree in filmmaking, started a company. And my partner and I were like we're filmmakers and we make, we have lots of clients and we're making lots of videos and things like that. And it's great. That's how we make our living. But, I wanted to make a film. I wanted to be a film director. I wanted to go out and do a feature. So, so I said, what if I'm going to look into this story? And I tracked down a name and an address for Peggy using like a kind of an amateur PI website, wrote her a letter. And then 3 days later, she called me. And from that first call, she was like, I never found my daughter. And 2, I think she's still out there. And that was the beginning. That was summer 2016. So that was the beginning of the whole process. That's what kicked it off, really.
Cool. Okay, well, that was the next question, is how then did you run into Peggy later? And that is, you were looking for Peggy. Then
I was looking for her, yeah. And our conversations from that letter turned into phone calls. From the phone calls turned into conversations about, what do I need to make this happen? So like you'll see in the film, I get a limited power of attorney, which her son helped execute because he's an attorney. And then I started calling people and like just doing research and trying to track people down. And Peggy was, I basically said, Peggy, can I I'm a filmmaker. Can I make this story? Can I make your life story into a documentary? And she never really had any resistance to it. I think she sensed that her story could help heal other people. It could have a real effect on others, and certainly people who have suffered trauma. So I started documenting it, and that's kind of how the process started to unfold as a film.
That gets into one thing I really like. And I mentioned in our jury meeting, which I should remind myself I was going to mention at the end, that we should mention that you won the jury award here for Best Documentary Feature. And one of the things that I said during the meeting to the people that were deciding that as they were talking about it is I said, he didn't just direct this movie. It's not just a matter of crafting a story. It's not just a matter of the craftsmanship of setting up cameras and things like that. But he's in investigative journalism now. And I remember I asked you in our first Q&A session, where did you just learn to become an investigative journalist to make this movie? So how did you become an investigative journalist? Did you reference anyone or do anything? Like you just were like, I'm just going to figure this mystery out.
Well, it's funny. Like, I feel like, first off, there's something about these kind of crime stories that I'm drawn to, because I remember like my mom would always watch 2020 in prime time, and I would always just like sit down on the couch next to her and be like, maybe she won't notice me like watching this really dark murder story with her, So I think that got into my blood as a kid. My uncle has like his private investigator's license. So I remember early on in the process, I asked him, and he was like, "Well, there's some resources and some things that I could probably connect you with," um, and he pointed me towards some websites. So this is like shout out to peoplesmart.com. Basically, is no longer exists. Got like absorbed by some other website. They got absorbed by some other website, but it's these like information miners that just get lots of information and data, and they try to match it to people's names and stuff. It's like background checking websites. That's like the biggest help I had. And then certainly resources like Ancestry, and there's like mugshot databases. That was part of it. That was getting names, addresses, things like that. Some of the stuff, I like some of the people, for example, I interview this woman, gosh, I can remember her last name, but I can't remember her first name. That's terrible. Stinnett, Vondel Stinnett. She's in the movie just for a brief minute. She is the cousin of Peggy, whose mother once heard that Peggy's that Peggy's family was involved in a black market baby ring. I couldn't find a way to get in contact with her, but I had an address. So for that person, I just went to the door, knocked on the door, which you see in the film, and she answers, which is like kind of like nerve-wracking to do. And Suzanne, who's a big character in the film, she was tough to get a hold of and keep a hold of and keep track of where she was and try to schedule an interview with her. So it's a combination of websites, going to the actual places, lots and lots of phone calls. Like, for example, Steve Lawson, who was the grave digger back when Peggy's baby was exhumed. Man, it feels so nice to have a spoiler alert, because it's like every time I talk about the movie, I'm just like, I can never say anything about anything. Okay, so that guy, Steve Lawson, that was like probably 3 or 4 days of just calling phone calls. Like I got his last name, and then somebody else gave me his first name, and then I ended up calling his old work, and they were like, he doesn't work here anymore. That's weird that you're like looking for him so hard. And I ended up getting his mom's phone number, who then gave me his dad's phone number, and then his dad gave me his phone number. And kind of a weird thing is that everybody who I sort of like dragged out of what they were doing to like let me interview them, they all were connected to Peggy in very weird ways. Like Steve, for example, there's a lot of archival footage in the movie. Well, a lot of that stuff doesn't exist anymore, or the news station doesn't have it, or whatever. Steve was just like, when I got to his house, he didn't even mention this before, but when I got to his house, he's like, "Oh yeah, here's a DVD I took of the story, and like a bunch of other local coverings of the story. Like, here you go." And I was like, "Why do you have this?" He's like, "I don't know. I just thought it was like an interesting story, and I just have like been dragging this DVD around for the last, 20 years, just like waiting for me to show up and get it." I don't know. But
I'm that guy though. I'm that guy for sure.
Yeah, you could do Steve Lawson.
I had a couple of these. One of the feature films is playing here. The director had made 2 shorts that I had received a decade ago and did not program, but I still have the DVDs because I have everything. Back when the festivals ran on physical media, I have almost everything saved.
That's awesome.
Telling a story about something else, and I just, in my room, I even had a newspaper clipping from something I was telling a story about. I was like, oh, here, look at this. And I'm that guy. I'm Steve there, man.
You got the archive, the secret archive. It's funny because some people I went to film school with, like a really good friend of mine, he like made this movie and he just doesn't even have it anymore. And I was like, "Hey, where's that? I want to see that movie." Cause I was a part of shooting it and editing. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I like lost that a couple of years ago." And I was like, "Oh, it's too bad."
That's me too. I made one in college that's missing. I think about parts of it all the time, and
yeah,
Yeah, and I gave copies to the subjects, and it was a school project, and I handed it in, and I think I had a hard drive crash, and none of the people that I gave it to still had a copy.
Man, and I don't know if other filmmakers that you've talked to ever talk about this, but like it's really weird when you have, I mean, I had two duplicate hard drives, and each hard drive had a 6 hard drive bay array. So it had like 2 drive redundancy. But it was like anytime like the fire alarm went off in my building, I was just like, screw everything else. Like grab the hard drive. That's got everything, you know? Um, so I'm like pretty obsessed with just making sure it's all backed up.
I have a place I try to every once in a while take some stuff to my friend's house, and so I have backups in 2 different places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question. So I was really trying to work on keeping the festivalness of the festival and audience interaction and even with each other and getting everything going. So I started a Discord
Okay.
for the server. I don't remember if you're in there, but no, you're not in there. But so there's a room for each film, and lo and behold, there are some questions here for you in there.
Wow. Excellent. I'm opening Discord. I don't know if I need to be in there, but
No, I'll just read them to you. That's fine.
okay.
What made the filmmaker, you, decide to put himself in the film?
I didn't really decide actually. I
don't see how you could have done it without that.
I honestly didn't decide. Basically, I really don't like it when filmmakers are in the film. I shouldn't say that. There are some movies that I love where the filmmakers in the film. Like there's a movie called Sherman's March, which is, I guess the filmmaker is not really in the film. He's behind the camera the whole time talking. But so in terms of like when I went to Chattanooga for the first time, completely thought I would be behind the camera. I felt like I'm not going to be on camera. And my cinematographer, who is also my fiance, Emma, she just started filming me, and I was kind of like, "What are you doing?" You know? And she's like, "Well, like I'm like documenting this, and I feel like you're pushing the story along, you know." And in my mind, I was like, okay, like I'm gonna let her film that stuff, but like we're probably just gonna. She's probably just like warming up and figuring out what she wants to do with the movie visually. And her and Suze, who's the writer on the film, who also served as the sound recordist, like they had been sort of talking about the idea of me being in the movie together, and I was like kind of privy to those conversations, but I was like, yeah, whatever. But Emma started filming me, and then it just continued that way, because what happened was that the story is sort of very much about Peggy, and I serve as a kind of like a narrator of sorts, you know, like I'm just sort of that's how I see myself, as a narrator. Like this was the hardest thing to solve when it came to the film, is how much of me needs to be in this movie. You know, like I certainly don't want to take over the story, like on the Untitled Jonathan project. Like that was that movie, and it worked perfect for that movie. But for this, the most important thing was that it was Peggy's story. So what I tried to do was have me in it as little as I possibly could. And like a note that I got over and over and over again was either that people didn't want me in the movie at all, or they felt like I was an undeveloped character. And a lot of it was from like my really informed, I mean, it was from other filmmakers who felt that way. And so I had to keep working and working and working on my presence, because the movie started to feel like it didn't kind of work without me, and it didn't work when I was in it too much. So I end up becoming the narrator of exposition, and also somewhat of like an extension of Peggy, I feel, where if it's Peggy's will, then, and I can fulfill it for her, then I can serve in the story in that sense. some of the more interesting scenes though to deal with are like moments where I start to doubt Peggy's story. And really what I ultimately decided was that I wanted to be you. I wanted to put myself in the position of you, the viewer. Like, what would the viewer find confusing? What would the viewer start to doubt? When would the viewer say, that doesn't make sense? Like, why are there 30 documents related to the birth records of this child? Like, that's a lot of records to exist without some kind of event that happened, that really happened to this child. So like that's a moment in the film where I a little bit speak, I think, what the viewer's thinking at that point, which is like, I don't even actually give my opinion. I don't think. I just say, this is 32 documents we're talking about here. Like that's kind of a turning point in the film for me, is in terms of my character, is to get that collection of documents and be like, wow, this is a lot of documents. Like, how do we wrap our brains around that? How did Peggy wrap her brain around that? You know, and in the film, she explains it. She says, like, it gave her pause. It gave her pause, and she admits that, you know. That's probably a kind of a long-winded answer, but short story is I didn't really decide. My wonderful collaborators sort of decided for me, and then I embraced it and worked on it a lot.
Yeah. Almost everyone I've talked to says the same thing. Boy, I hate when people do it, but he really did it well, and it really worked for the story, and it was necessary, I think. I mean, I think what you're saying is it was necessary because they shot you in it a lot, but I think it was necessary to have you shepherd us through what's going on. And, you know, honestly, his other question here says, what was the relationship between you and her like offset? And I think it's easy to assume that it's just like what we see, and that your presence is a key part for us and a key part for her. And I can't picture you not being in there. That's, I mean, you're just, I don't know. That's just how it seems to work. I don't know.
Yeah. Peggy and I were, like you said, I think we were the same off camera as we were on. She and I were, and more so, like after the film, after I was done shooting, like I still talked to Peggy regularly until she passed away. And I would check up on her when I hadn't heard it from her in like a couple weeks, you know, I'd try to see. And one thing that I thought was like amazing, and I did not expect, is if you look in her obituary, she put a Zach. Now I can't, she said she said like my cousins, and she lists the name Zach. She never spoke of another cousin's named Zach, and I'm hesitant to assume that it's me, but like she and I definitely had a very, very special bond for sure.
I think we have this list of things we were talking about, but I just keep avoiding it.
That's okay,
because you keep coming up with these great segues. But one thing I mentioned last time we talked that we didn't really get a chance to talk to is honestly one of my favorite life philosophies that's in a lot of my favorite media, and it's this idea that we make our own families. And so you hadn't told me this before, but I could clearly see how she would feel that you are just like Suzanne, right? Her daughter. And, you know, I think I mentioned at some point, I said her daughter, whether it was in another Q&A or whether it was just a chat on the phone. And you said something like, oh, well, but it's not her daughter. I was like, no, that's her daughter. I mean, they found each other. They created a family. And that's, you know, honestly, one of my favorite life philosophies, you know.
I love that idea, and I love that idea in the movie, and I certainly pushed that as a little bit into the story as much as it made sense. That's why there is a scene between Suzanne and Peggy, because they are family in a way. I mean, for goodness sake, she's got her photos on the wall. You know, the photo says "Hi, Mom." You know, for me, it's like, to say I love you is a big deal. That's kind of reserved for friends that transcend into family, or for bloodline family members that you love. And like, I thought that was really touching, is when they say I love you, um, and I think, Peggy and I have exchanged that too. Like we we did become family for that time that we were working on the movie, and certainly thereafter. So yeah, I'm very into that idea as well.
Um, what is the most challenging aspect of production?
Oh, funny you should ask that. That sounds like one of our questions.
I'm honestly such a bad actor that uh, I feel transparent when I ask questions I know the answer to, or this is not the first scripted, this was not the first kind of pre-thought of questions I did this week.
Right. Well, this one, I actually haven't talked about this too in a Q&A, which is interesting, because I somehow forget it. Maybe I'm repressing it. But first of all, I want to tell people that if they've seen the film, if you haven't watched all the way through the credits, we've got one of those like Easter egg things at the very end. That's pretty cool. So I urge you to go watch after the credits. At the very end of the credits, there's another mini scene with Peggy and I. But the last credit before that is a dedication to my dad. And my dad passed away in early June of 2017. And I was in the middle of making this movie. And I had a great relationship with my dad. I was very close to my dad. And his death was pretty much out of the blue. He had a heart attack, and that was it. He had a heart attack. He went to the hospital, didn't leave the hospital. So I found out that he had a heart attack on, I think, a Thursday night at midnight. I got on a plane the next morning. My family lives in Hawaii. I flew to Hawaii. I was at his bedside by about 11 p.m. and he was already unconscious. I was there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday morning, my family, my immediate family, which is my mom and my sister, at a certain point, if people have gone through this, there's, their life is, what's sitting in that hospital room with you is not that person anymore. That's the shell that their soul was inhabiting. So we decided to let him go, and I had to. Or the plan was, before all this happened, the following week. So now it's Monday. Wednesday. No, yeah. No, Thursday, I was meant to fly to Chattanooga. So Monday I was with my family, the day my dad passed. Tuesday I flew home to Los Angeles. Wednesday I did whatever I needed to do. Thursday I flew to Chattanooga. Friday I helped Peggy bury her daughter. So here I am, standing in Hensley Cemetery, and I'm in this little forgotten family cemetery, and Peggy is, standing there watching her daughter in this tiny casket, the remains of her daughter get buried. And I hadn't processed anything. I was just like there and not there, just focusing on the movie, because one, I knew my dad would want me to do that. He was so proud of my pursuits and so supportive. So it was really a no-brainer to go do it. But two, for me, it's like, sometimes you just put everything else on hold. It's all like in a buffering zone where you're not processing it. And you're like, I'm going to get to the fact that my dad just passed away, like when I get home, or maybe in a couple weeks or whatever. And Peggy was so sweet to me. I honestly, Peggy, I don't think really wanted me to come, because she just was looking out for me, but it was something I wanted to do. And that really solidified our relationship. The fact that I was able to be there for her for that moment, and still with all that I was dealing with. And for me, creatively, and just like in terms of my work, it sort of brought this whole new meaning to the film, because now I was like dealing with my dad's passing while trying to make a story about somebody who's getting over the death of a child. And it just gives you a lot more access, I think, to the material, how you view the material, what's really important, what doesn't feel authentic, you know. And it helped me process a lot with my dad, because you know, everybody's got questions about their parents and who they are, and just like Peggy had questions about her parents. So it was like a therapeutic experience. I mean, I know that sounds really bad and like what's the word, like pretentious, but like, you know, making these films, especially independent films, it is a lot about trying to dig up stuff in yourself and share it with other people, and you know, that kind of thing.
No, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I don't remember if I mentioned or sent you what the movie I produced was, a narrative feature, but it involves two people who are thinking about killing themselves. And, you know, that's one of the things we thought about is how can we help, you know, make this a little more understandable? How can we connect with people and give them something to look at? And a month or 2 months before we started shooting, two very notable musicians killed themselves. And I couldn't help but feel like this, and it does. I also felt that it was totally pretentious to think, you know, here's a piece of art that I could give that could really help someone. But but I thought it. I mean, I was like, you know, oh, this is a good time to make this. This is a troublesome, you know, area. This is something that, you know, that I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
That's in the independent. I was thinking already ahead earlier to the next Q&A, which is about a you know, a band and how similar they are, and you got to keep pushing. You know, I mean, the band also connects with people in such a way. So, let's see. Behind the scenes stories.
Behind the scenes stories. That's a good question.
You're an actor. I can't, you know.
I actually forgot what we were talking about with the behind the scenes.
Okay. I'll just read what it says here. Do you have any good behind the scenes stories? And you said you almost lost your drone on the first day of production.
Yeah, that's kind of just a funny gear story, which is, like I don't know why, maybe because I was trying to save money, but I didn't hire a drone operator, which if you're watching this, you should definitely hire a drone operator. Do not hire a drone operator. Like, they're amazing at what they do, and they're usually willing to work with you on a budget. So, and safety is everything with drones. But I had fancied myself as a drone operator, and I had this old drone, and like the first day I like made Emma and Suze get up and trek out to like a river at, I want to say it was like 5 a.m. I was like, we got to get the sunrise, you know, and the shot actually is in the movie and it looks great, but we're flying this thing and it starts raining and I like lose signal with the drone and I just see it like veering left and it like literally the legs of it like skim the water and then all of a sudden it rises and we got the shot and it came back. But I was just like, it would have just been a whole buzzkill if like the very first shot of this movie, it would be a really ominous thing if the first shot is just the drone sinking to the bottom of a river with a GoPro attached, because it was one of those like, you know, it had the GoPro thing attached to it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking is not just a drone, but it's a camera that you would have lost too.
It would have been a drone and a camera, and so and
your dignity.
Yes, and my dignity and my sanity.
Momentum.
Right. I'm like, all right, this is not gonna work. Let's just pack it up. But yeah, that's kind of and I've got, you know, gear stories are kind of fun, but that's just one of them, I guess.
I usually try not to bring up my own shit too often, and
okay.
especially try not to do multiples in a year. But when I started that feature, our first, not just our first day, but literally the first thing we were shooting, we almost got arrested.
Oof.
Which is a bad start.
Yeah, that's no bueno.
Um, Tell me about God. So, how much of this was editing, and how much of this was shooting? It was 4 years total. I feel like probably a lot was in editing.
A lot was in editing. So I want to say that I you know, this is how the production broke down. There was like a 12-day
First shoot.
first shoot, right? Getting as many interviews as we could and capturing like the beginning of the story, which is Peggy's story, interviewing people, tracking down people, trying to get details. And at that time also, we were getting the DNA results. So that scene happens. So basically the beginning of the movie is all from like mainly the 12-day shooting. Then there was a second bulk of shooting, which I think was like about 9 days. That was what you see in the movie, the second half, the burial of the child, and then Peggy's doubts about, kind of like falling back on what she believes. Then we started doing reenactment shoots. I think we did maybe 2 or 3 days of reenactments. And then I went back to Chattanooga by myself with our camera twice. And that was just for pickup shots. Like, we need a shot of this, we need a shot of that, stuff that was coming up in editing that like we just couldn't fake and we needed a shot of it. So I actually, it was kind of remarkable what the ratio was. Sometimes a documentary can be like 100-to-1 in terms of hours, like 100 hours of footage. I want to say maybe ours was around like 30-to-1. Like, it was pretty efficient, even though it doesn't sound efficient but it is for a documentary, I think.
Something I just heard, I don't remember what it was, if it's a movie I've got here or something else, but I just heard 400 hours.
Whew.
Somebody just said.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of hours.
Especially if you're like, this was a single camera shoot, which is like a real, I don't know if there's like a documentary that Errol Morris made for Netflix. It's like I can't remember what it's called, but it's on a CIA story. Wormwood, which I really enjoyed. Not that Errol Morris, is going to maybe see this or care, but like those interviews had like 8 cameras.
It was interesting though, because it was kind of the first time that I really noticed him not using the Interrotron. He got the side angles, and it made me feel off. You know what I mean? Like, it was very noticeable. I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, there's so many angles, and I remember like in post with one camera, it's really interesting because you really can't escape that one camera. So you have to kind of get creative with like, it's such a luxury to have 2 cameras. Like when we do, commercial shoots and we get 2 cameras, it's like, oh, we don't need B-roll. Like, we can just cut to the second camera and we're fine.
Did you shoot on something that was, so expensive that you didn't have a second one?
No, absolutely the opposite. So at the time, we were just in the process of like getting our first cinema camera for our business, which we own now. It's the EVA 1, the Panasonic EVA 1, which we love. But we didn't have it at the time. We were still shooting on a 5D Mark III. And for all the gear people out there, that's like a DSLR camera that shoots SD cards in HD.
That's what we shot our movie on. But we had 3 of them at times.
Oh yeah, we had one. We had just one. Okay. And I'll tell you what is interesting about it is I was so cheap. I didn't get this is true. When we loaded Magic Lantern on the 5D, we shot the whole movie in Magic Lantern, which is it's like a open source firmware for the camera that unlocks it for higher quality, not resolution, but quality. And man, thank you, Magic Lantern people, for doing that, because I think it's cool. But like, that just destroyed us in post. Like, it shoots in our proprietary format, which you have to then convert into Cinema DNG, which then you have to make proxies out of because they won't play back and resolve. So like, I ended up having to throw, like, all the actual camera negatives are trash. They're gone. they got turned into Cinema DNG, which were lossless, and then turned into like proxy files. So what I'm saying is probably just like no one cares. But basically, I don't think many documentaries have been shot on Magic Lantern. All the reenactments were shot on our Eva. And it works to that benefit because they look different, and they are different. They're a different style. They're a different, dream world, I guess. Or yeah.
Cool. Oh, so the editing process, carving out this story. What's your favorite thing you had to trim?
Ooh. Favorite thing? My favorite thing I had to trim. This is really weird.
How long was your first cut?
My first cut, actually, you know what? People say like they had like a 2.5 hour first cut. My first cut was short. I was always like trying to get it trying to get it, work on it long enough with Rachel.
Like, was it short, or do you just mean it was short? Like short, like it was, an hour 50, and whatever.
No, it was like I think the movie is 100 minutes. It was like 70 minutes. I was like, could this movie be 45 minutes? Like, maybe it could be. That's a feature.
It could be. You could trim it down for TV or something. I bet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
I'm always amazed at how many movies are able to trim out for PBS or for an hour-long slot. I'm like, I'm always curious, like looking at what it is. I don't really watch those, but I'm always like, I saw that movie, and I'm not sure how you could trim 20 minutes out. I know you're missing some good stuff.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, for this, I don't know how I don't know how you would do it. It would be hard actually for this movie. Somebody did ask me that though in some of our like distribution meetings. It was like, could you turn this into a broadcast piece? And I was like, I'll do anything, like whatever you need.
Enough money. I'll do anything.
How much are you gonna give me?
I'll do it for you.
Yeah,
but it better be worth it.
Yeah. So I there was nothing really I missed. It was more just like trying to get everything in. I know what I was going to say is the son of Dr. Monroe, the doctor who delivered Peggy's baby. He had a really interesting. He himself was adopted, and his adoption was disputed like a year after. And like, as I'm saying this, it's like, why the hell? I'm sure it's like, why wasn't that in the movie? Because it's like the son of the doctor who supposedly created this big conspiracy was adopted, and there was some kind of dispute about the child and if the child was supposed to be with the doctor and his wife, Dr. Monroe and his wife. And I tried like the Dickens to like find something in that story, and there really wasn't. I couldn't communicate the right way because ultimately the paperwork turned out to be that like the OBGYN that was actually overseeing the adoption passed away, and so the adoption just kind of fell off the radar for the county records, and that's why. So it wasn't anything nefarious, and I felt like it was one of those moments where like it would have been really interesting for the film, but it would have been dishonest. And I was just like, no matter how hard I try to make this look like a story beat, like it just, I'm going to know it's not real. And I hate that. So I didn't include it.
I was going to ask, you said you grew up watching all these true crime things. Do you keep up on true crime? And because I watch all of it. So when this came across my desk, I was like, oh, cool, an indie true crime thing. And how do you feel about it being called a true crime? Because it's kind of cheating since there's no crime. And put it in quotes, you might be kind of giving away the ending of the film.
Well, I have no problem with it because people like true crime. And so if it brings more people into the watching it, I'm like, call it true crime, call it mystery. I mean, it is mystery.
And clearly anyone who likes true crime will like this, even though in the end there's no crime. I mean,
yeah. And I feel like for me, it's like that's what makes the film interesting. Is it starts as a true crime movie, and at the end of it, you're like, oh, this is like a really incredible character study. And
So
yeah,
how do you feel about all the true crime coming out? Are you keeping up on it? Do you love it all? Because we
I
love it all.
do. I don't know if I love it all. I watch a lot of it. Kind of like what we were just talking about. There's either the problem that it's here's my problem. The cable stuff is driven by ad revenue. So it's too short. And not only that, but it serves these act breaks that are all cliffhangers, right? So it's like with that stuff, it's like you need a 12-minute first act, you need a
No,
cliffhanger.
we don't watch any of that. It's all
Okay.
Netflix, Showtime, HBO. We
So
don't
so
watch anything with ad breaks, really. At
so
least in crime. Yeah.
yeah. So setting the cable stuff aside, which I love the cable stuff, it's just it has to serve the advertiser. God, I hope that saying that doesn't shoot myself in the foot. But anyway, the stuff that's on Netflix and more like SVOD services, my only thing that I have trouble with is if it's too long. Like I just feel like there's a lot, like they're fun to watch, but if they're too long or we spend like too much time getting into the story, like I'm immediately like, man, this needed to be 4 episodes, not 8. Um, you know, so I don't want to call out any shows that do that, but there are certainly shows that I have very much loved. Like, I loved The Jinx.
Yeah.
I loved Evil Genius. I thought Evil Genius was like the perfect amount of time. I'm trying to think of like.
I thought Making of a Murderer was great.
Yeah.
Especially every episode ended. You talk about commercial breaks. Every episode ended on that. What the fuck now is going on?
Oh, totally. Yeah, and a lot of people had an issue with season 2, but I am so into like forensics that I loved season 2 too. I was like, I'm here. Like make a season 3, I'm into it as well. So yeah.
Do you have any advice for people that are thinking about getting into documentaries? Besides, don't do it. I've learned that's not the advice that people want.
I think similar to how I was talking about, deciding to be in the film. In some ways, it's hard because I don't feel like I really decided to make this movie. Like I feel like the movie just sort of decided that I was going to make it. And again, that probably sounds pretentious, but like there was something about this story that kind of hooked me, and you just find yourself daydreaming about it. It kind of consumes like waking hours, and then I guess if I was going to say something, it would be start getting into the process. Like if you think you have a documentary or you have a good idea for a documentary or whatever it is, like just find some subjects, interview them, see what material you get, see what questions come up. The benefit of making a crime movie or a mystery is you get to start with a question. What happened to Peggy's baby? We can follow that question. It's very linear. You can keep that as like the anchor of the story. It draws you forward in the process. It draws the viewer forward. So I was lucky in that regard. But you do some interviews, and while you're getting material, you're shaping the material. And honestly, if the material speaks to you, like no one's going to say don't make this movie, and no one's going to say go make this movie. If it's a personal film, no, like if you're looking for someone to validate it, like it's never going to happen. So hopefully the movie chooses you to make it, and you just feel like some inner force, that's just drawing you forward and causing you to go make the movie.
So I should ask this, and we talked about it before. I just want to put this out there because I don't think it wasn't in the Q&A, and I know that you haven't done really many Q&As.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the first time I talked to you, we talked a little bit about the idea that maybe the deathbed confession never actually happened. That it's something that she wants so much, and she is someone who has suffered at least some sort of trauma, and I don't know if she could be seen to have PTSD, but that is something that alters your perception. And so I'm going to frame this a different way because we talked about it a little bit. Have you shown the film, or have you heard from anyone who's seen the film that might be a psychiatrist who might have given you any insight as to, seeing her on camera for that long, just anything that could lead towards solving that mystery?
Yeah. So, in the film, there's a scene where I basically kind of pose this question to my sister of like, what else psychologically could be going on here? And she describes it, which is, in many ways we form our own version of reality, and we can revise that version. And so in that regard, in terms of experts, I've talked to several psychologists that have watched the movie, and I haven't, what I'd like to do is do more of a discussion with both people that are experts in trauma and maybe people that have suffered trauma, how it affects them. Because I do think especially this film will resonate with people that are close to experiences that are presented in the film, whether it's the kind of trauma Peggy suffered, or adoption, or, trying to make a family out of people that aren't your blood relatives. So are you asking me if I believe in the deathbed confession from her mother?
I mean, in the end, like any open-ended thing, I mean, obviously it doesn't matter.
It doesn't, yeah, in my opinion, it doesn't matter. I mean, I would say that even after making the movie, there were times when I would catch myself like thinking like, well, maybe there was a baby, and maybe, and I certainly, viewers have said that to me. Like, people have gotten to the end of the movie and they're like, I don't feel like it's been solved. I don't necessarily feel closure. And I think that that's kind of like in some ways like a reflection of where you're at when you watch the movie, but also where you're at maybe with truth in general, or how you reconcile things. Like,
well, Peggy was satisfied, right?
Yeah.
Peggy was satisfied, and I think that's what's important. Whether her mother randomly woke up and lied to her, or whether she imagined that, I mean, I think we can just be pretty confident and say that she believes it happened, right? Whether she lied to her or whether she imagined it, it doesn't really matter. The important thing is that she got the closure that she does not have this blood relative out there. That's what's important. That's the truth, and that's the reality. And then the positivity is that she is comforted potentially by that,
Yeah, and
but it is interesting. It's just not really important. I spent a lot of time yesterday talking. Yesterday, maybe it was 2 days ago. The days are all the same now.
It's Friday.
It is Friday, isn't it? Explaining to my son about open endings, and how a lot of times people will think that something's an open ending, but something's actually been solved. We were talking about The Village. He was talking about how he hated The Village. Do you remember The Village?
Yeah, it's a Shyamalan movie.
What'd you say?
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah. Oh, he didn't like that. He didn't find out if the guy survived. And I said, well, what's important is she finished the task to bring him the medicine. And so anything beyond that, it's not something that can be changed, right? She succeeded in her task, and along the way, we've discovered this big secret. And so that's it. I mean, he's either going to live or he's not, but everyone has succeeded in their mission to help him live. You can decide whether he lives or not.
Yeah.
It's an ending. It's just, you're just not satisfied because they're not explaining everything. And so that's fine. We have the closure. We know what happened. And we have it's silly to think that the happy ending is that her child didn't survive, but in some ways that's happier than the fact that she was separated from her and never got to see her anyway. At least she can put her mind to ease.
Well, I don't know who said this, but It's something I've always heard is like every story is one scene away from being a sad ending or a
Oh,
happy ending.
well, I can't remember who wrote the song. I think it was Jason Isbell. I think it was anyway. It's a Drive By Trucker song, so I can't remember who wrote the song, but it's the line in the song is called "The secret to a happy ending is knowing when to roll the credits."
Absolutely. I mean, like a really good example of that is The Graduate. Where like if you watch the ending of that movie and they like get on the bus and they take off and they're so happy and then the camera just sits there on them and they both realize that like they've just been like going after getting together, but they actually don't even know if they like each other or want each other. And then the movie ends and you're like, oh, that was made me feel weird, you know? So
Yeah, I mean, especially with relationship movies, the movie ends at a certain time, you've got a happy ending, but you don't know what happened 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. We may all think that we have a happy ending in our lives and in our relationships that may turn out not to be. So pretty depressing, which is why I think it was Jason. That's why I think Jason Isbell wrote it, because he writes all the best depressing drive-by trucker songs.
nice.
Goddamn Lonely Love is probably one of the most depressing relationship songs that I know of. Anyway, I can't remember the name of the actual song though.
I feel like Goddamn Lonely Love is a good name for a song.
Are you into them? Have you heard them?
Not much. I know the band name though.
Yeah. Check it out. It is a world. So it's a World of Hurt, and who wrote it? Oh no, one of the other songwriters wrote it. Anyway, where was I? So tell me about the places the film's been.
Okay, so we premiered at the Nashville Film Festival, thanks to the gentleman to my right.
Yes, I'm the programmer for the Tennessee first section at Nashville, which is where I saw the film and brought you here.
Yep.
And you're out now on Gravitas. How did that happen?
So I had been applying to festivals and the movie was pretty much done. And I was like, okay, I can, I'm gonna do the simultaneous thing. I'm gonna try to apply to all these festivals, and I'm also gonna just go straight to market. So I'm assuming some people know this, but like a lot of the festivals are markets in a sense,
The bigger festivals.
The bigger festivals, they're markets. It's like places for films to premiere and then get acquired if they get, buzz or whatever. But there are also just markets. I guess there are markets that are kind of attached to festivals. So Hot Docs is a festival that also has a market attached that you can apply to get into. So I got into the market called Hot Docs Distribution Rendezvous. Basically, it opens up your film to distributors. And I got a series of meetings. I think I ended up getting like 12 meetings, and Gravitas emerged as the best partner. They kind of, understood the film, really liked the film, wanted to take it on. And so even before I premiered at Nashville, the film had already, the distribution rights had already been signed to Gravitas. Yeah.
They are putting out a ton of independent film.
They do a lot.
I don't know how. I don't know how it goes, but yeah, a lot. Just a ton of movies, a ton of content.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I only know my experience from working with them from the inside out, and they've been great in that regard. But yeah, they do a lot of movies.
Yeah.
So
you have an interesting thing that you mentioned, that you still have festival rights. Are you planning to go to other festivals? Did COVID mess all that up?
I'm still out to other festivals, and I just actually heard back from Atlanta DocuFest, which I'll be playing in, I want to say like next week. I don't know. I gotta look. I know it's terrible. I'm sorry, Matt.
Don't worry, it's Friday.
It's Friday. Everything's fine. It's Friday. So I'm in Atlanta DocuFest, and then I don't know after that. But you can see the movie through the Lake County Film Festival. You can see it for a couple more days. You can see it through Atlanta DocuFest. You can see it anywhere you stream movies, really, on Amazon Prime and Apple TV, Vudu, Fandango Now.
I want to hide since you got. Let me see if before I said this out loud. Let me make sure you're in here all good. I mentioned StreamYard to you, which you said you've used since then and enjoyed.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yes. So, that was a great rec.
So let me recommend this for you. I'll share my screen real quick here. This site, if it loads up. Come on. While we're talking, oh no, here it is. Okay, so this might not be everything, but this site called Just Watch you can look up any movie and it will tell you if it's on streaming, like subscription services, and it will tell you each service that it's available at, in what quality and how much it is.
Get out of here.
Yeah, no, it's so cool, and those are direct links to where they are. So right now, if you want to see, I know Apple TV is something that you've mentioned. It looks like they're the only ones. Oh no, they're not. Okay, so it's the same price everywhere on HD, but on SD it's a little cheaper everywhere but Apple TV, and you're not available on 4K, obviously, since you shot on a 5D, at least part of it. And this is basically, from what I've seen, automatically updated. So if you give someone this link and one of these people put it on sale, they'll easily be able to see, hey, it's on sale this week. I can get it cheaper over here. If you pop up on Netflix, it will show up in a different box. Yeah, it's so
cool.
It's one of my favorite sites. Every time, if I post about a film, someone's like, where can I see it? And especially even filmmakers don't keep track, So that link, where she lies /US/movie/where-she-lies, will always let people know where your movie is playing.
That is so cool.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
What a great rec. Yeah. Somebody it's funny how all this stuff makes it through the internet, because somebody was like, oh, your movie's on Letterboxd and your movie's on Rotten Tomatoes. And it's like, I don't even know how it got there. It just showed up.
I also love Letterboxd. I had no idea you were finally on there.
Yeah. Well, we're probably going to wrap up here soon, but I just want to say a couple things. One is, it's been such an honor to get to know you, and beyond just being so touched that you chose the film for the jury award for docs was, awesome. But just you in general, and your spirit and your energy and your love for getting out films and filmmakers is really just the best, inspiring. And so kudos to you, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to.
My pleasure, man. I love connecting. I mean, I love to just see stuff, and I just love to share it. My whole life has been that, I've run through the list a couple times, but right out of high school, I started a record label. Saw great local bands and wanted more people to see them. Started working at my neighborhood video and music store, and then I bought it. And that whole thing is, what am I ordering? What am I telling people to rent? What am I, whatever? And then from there, I started the film festival. And a little while later, I started a DVD label when physical DVDs were still a thing. And
that's awesome.
I just love to share that stuff. And honestly, I posted on Facebook a while ago, and I don't know how influential I was, but I said something to the fact that I love doing this. But being the first person to call you that's outside of your circle, we call that number one fan here, fan number one. Last year, our closing night film was this film called 5/25/77, which is about a guy from my county who was the first person to see Star Wars.
Oh, wow.
Involved with the making of it.
Wow.
So he made this movie called 52577, and I was the first person to see that movie that wasn't involved in the making of it. So I always say that I'm his fan number one. And so I guess I could be fan number one. But when we talked, I talked the first time, I kind of I gave you my opinion about your ending. And
yeah, oh yeah, we should talk about that actually.
Yeah, well, I mean it's not a big deal, but I mean I made a post on Facebook about how the fact that I was able to help somebody potentially make their film better was a great honor that comes along very rarely.
Well, I'm just going to describe what happened was you
For
called me and I was in the final.
Can I just say before we get into that, one of the first things I said, I mentioned something about her imagining that, and you were like, "Oh, yeah, well, she died in April," and it was like, and this is a testament to your movie, really, because your movie is the only thing I knew about Peggy, and it honestly hit me like a hammer. It was just like a hammer in the gut. I was like, I just watched this movie about this woman go through a journey, and then you're like, yeah, she died, and I was like, oh God, that sucks, and that just says a lot about how good the movie is, not just history, not just as a thing, but like really getting to the heart of people and really making you care about people. I mean, I can't think of a bigger compliment than that. That's how much it mattered.
Yeah.
Honestly, I had to pause. I don't know.
I know. I remember that.
Okay, I was like choked up. I was like, oh, but it's cool. I'm playing this off real well.
I remember that. I was like, oh, she passed away, and there was like a good 3 minutes where we were just like trying to start the conversation again because you were like, wait, what?
I mean, you were used to it. Obviously, you were unfazed, but I was like, no, I'm slick. He doesn't know that this is bothering me.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it so cavalier like her death. It's glossed over it, but the movie had been finished for a while, and she had been struggling with health problems. So it wasn't as much of a surprise, or it was something that had the potential to happen. But anyway, so you called me and I mentioned that to you. And then there was the 3 minutes of you recollecting yourself. And then you were like, man, you should put that in the movie. And I don't even know if you said it like that. I don't think you were just like,
this is what I probably would usually say, right? Almost every time I do a Q&A about a documentary, the first question that people have is, what happened after the movie? There's always more, right? Like the dude,
totally.
The dude has the struggle to open up a skateboard shop. Like, oh, is the skateboard shop still around? Like everyone wants, it's just like the secret to a happy ending. It's like everyone wants to know what happened after. It's like Fast Times at Ridgemont High. You got to know what happened to everybody after the movie's over, right? And yeah, and in this case, it was obviously,
oh my gosh! I mean, could you imagine? It's like every time I go to Q&A, it's like, what happened to Peggy? I'm like, she's not around. It would just be like, everyone would be like, oh.
Or the other one would be like, what? So what does Peggy think about the movie?
Yeah, exactly.
And she did probably get to see something close to the finished product.
She never saw anything.
Oh Jesus!
Yeah,
you should put that in the movie. No, I'm joking.
A little late, Matt. A little late. Yeah, this is what happened. Nat called me up and he's like, I saw your movie. That was a real piece of shit. You need to change the ending. No, so you were like, you basically were like, I think I don't even think you said as a suggestion. You're like, it was like something you needed. You were like, people need to know that. And not only did I then add it to the end, but the voiceover changed. The whole voiceover didn't mention about her daughter and her belief that she'd meet her daughter in heaven and all of that. All that was said, but it's funny because when you're editing it, you're just you're editing all the way up to the last moment when you take your hands off it and you go like, okay, it's too expensive for me to change this. So I mean, you got my call probably days before I had to do this. And that was the last change of the movie. That was the last change. It was the titles and a couple changes in the voiceover and the timing, and nothing else changed. So like I will be forever grateful that you made that contribution, because it really was like, for me, it really lets the film land in the perfect place of just like the belief that you're going to meet this person is almost a heaven on earth itself, because it's like something to look forward to after a lifetime of pain.
What happened was I went to go rewatch it because you'd mentioned that. Okay. By the way, I was thinking about this. I don't know. I called up. Yeah, I called up my post, right? I love what I do. I love watching a ton of movies and programming for them for audiences. I love engaging with the audiences, experiencing the films, and I love engaging with the filmmakers. But today I had a great, albeit not very long. We are now 6 times as long as that Q&A, I think. Q&A session with Nashville, for Nashville with some filmmakers. And the director told me that after I talked to him months ago, they added something small to the film that I had suggested. That is a rare and special pleasure. We also discussed doing another Q&A for the Lake County Film Festival, which I'm starting to get excited about and is now almost over. So
now I will say that because it was so late in the game, I don't think you ended up getting a special thanks. So I'm giving you a post special thanks that you like, and more than a special thanks. I really mean it. You gave me an idea at the very end that really sealed the deal, I feel, for the story.
So when I went in to do that Q&A, I didn't have time to rewatch the whole thing, but I clicked to like the last 10 or 15 minutes. And I remember thinking, oh, I don't remember this part when she talks about this, but boy, that's poignant. And then that was some other stuff you changed. I was like, boy, I didn't even notice, but yeah, that was interesting. But
well, it's funny because like in making films, it's like you're kind of a thief. It's just like any good ideas, when they show up and you're like, that's a good idea, you just are like, I'm gonna try to get that into the movie. And so that conversation with you that day, like I was like, I got off the phone, I was like, that's a really good idea. I better not put that in the movie right now. So
I better not fuck this up.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Last question. What are you working on next? When's our next movie we can see?
Oh my gosh. Let's see. I'm writing a movie. It's I have a rough draft of it. It's called Zero State, and it's another interesting personal movie, but it's kind of like a psychological horror fantasy about an addicted, a gambling addict who starts having dreams about games of chance, and he starts fulfilling those dreams. And when he fulfills those dreams, he wins at the games of chance, but other aspects of his life suffer. So I'm kind of like trying to break the story for that. And other than that, I'm doing some other technology projects that probably aren't that interesting to talk about, and just doing my normal day-to-day with Zema Productions, the production company I co-own with my partner out here in Los Angeles.
You guys do commercials or
all kinds of stuff, commercials. Right now we're doing a lot of some animation now because of COVID, but mostly promotional documentaries for different organizations and brands and things like that. But you can check out our website, zemaproductions.com. It's got all of our recent work.
We have a comment. Let's see.
Oh,
that's really cool. I don't
know. Susan's our writer.
She's watching now, apparently.
Susan, it's Friday. Okay, wait. Before we go, I have a question for you.
Yes.
After we're all gone and someone discovers this on YouTube 200 years from now in the archives, what would you like them to know about you?
That I love doing this. That I love sharing the magic of art with people, be it music or film or things that incorporate both. And she is. When I tell my son, that he used to do so much writing, and now he seems to always have a really hard time. He's going to be 9 in a couple days, so he's still young. but he seems so enthralled with storytelling, or did. And yeah, I mean, I just love that. I love these. Look, we barely talked about production, and that was probably only because it was on that list we talked about. That's a lot less interesting to me than the philosophy of crafting a story that interests people.
Yeah.
Telling a story in a way that connects with people. And like Roger Ebert says, cinema is a machine that generates empathy. And that's that's big. That's important in the world. And I mean, it's pretentious, but art changes the world all the time. There's no reason that anyone can't do that.
Definitely. Good answer.
Yeah, thanks. What about you?
Let's see. I'm dead and gone. What do I have to say? Stop watching this video and go live your life right now.
Oh, I don't know about that one. What if it's my life? What if my life is just absorbing art and philosophy and activating my brain?
Then I would say thank you so much for joining us on this sprawling, beautiful Q&A session.
I don't even know Suze.
You could bring Suze on. She would spice it up.
Suze, this is a moving train. You have to tell us what you're talking about. You can't just say yes. We don't know what that yes is to. Oh God, it's Friday.
I think it's more like I think it's more just like a yes. Like it's like amen. Anything you guys say, yes.
I was like
that was about your Ebert quote. Oh.
I was like, did I ask a question?
I'm trying to figure out what I am was responding to.
I do love this StreamYard though. So it is really cool. I almost want to. I feel like I want to find excuses to use it for the festival year round, like like some Netflix watch parties and like if I didn't play this film at the festival and it just came out this week, or the week it came out was next summer or something, and you weren't part of the festival, just to try and get I almost just want to do stuff just to use StreamYard,
it's very cool. And
I can't picture doing a podcast, but I just want to do this. I don't know. It's so cool. I want to use it.
Yeah, I feel like that would be a really good use case, is just recording the video for if you're doing a podcast.
Yeah, are there a lot of video podcasts?
Well, I think a lot of them will just record the video while they do the recording, and then they'll just throw that up on YouTube too.
Yeah.
Kind of like Joe Rogan does that,
Yeah. So he'll do video interviews like this, not just. I've seen I see the Daily Show. I see clips of Rush Limbaugh because they're making fun of him.
Oh yeah.
Just doing a show, and there just happens to be video, but actually interviewing someone via video like this, I don't know.
I think he's actually, and I want to say Joe Rogan's probably more popular on YouTube than as an actual podcast.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go. I have to. I have another Q&A in an hour for Bleeding Audio, a music documentary.
Cool.
Which is pretty fun. Did you get a chance to watch anything at the festival?
Not yet. I wanna go check it out.
Well, it's Friday.
It's Friday. The night is young. Thank you, Nat. This was awesome.
My pleasure. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Suze.
Thank you, Suze.
And I'll see you in 200 years.
All right.